good afternoon and welcome to our panel on Is ESG Still Relevant? I think the fact that we're all here tells that it is definitely relevant, as well as Johann's talk this morning. Well, my name is Amanda Jobbins. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and Group Commercial Director for Vodafone Business, a division of Vodafone, who I trust you all know and hopefully love. And I'm proud to say that the telco sector has kept its commitments to net zero. And at Vodafone Business and Vodafone across the board, in fact, we are already powering 80% of our global networks using reusable energy. And we're recycling, reusing, and refurbishing all of our handsets and network equipment across our entire value chain. We're still committed to 2040 for net zero as well. And in fact, in the telco sector as a whole, 53 of the top 70 telcos are keeping their commitments. But what we're seeing in FMCG and also in other areas of the tech sector, such as Google and Microsoft, is people are stepping back from some of the commitments they've made. And as we know, that we just can't let that happen. So today we've got an incredible panel. And we're going to talk about is ESG relevant, the financing for transformation, and all of the challenges in the corporations we're working in today to keep this at the top table and to keep the focus on these issues. So with that, rather than me try and do them justice, I'm going to ask my panel to introduce themselves briefly, tell you a bit about their role, where they sit in this debate, and then we'll come back with a few questions. So would you like to take it away, Claudia?
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Claudia Hüge from Lufthansa Group, as you just mentioned. Very happy to be here today, even as we heard it today, very often in challenging times for sustainability, because this subject is really very, very close to my heart. I do this for the last 8 years, so I survived even in a hard-to-abate industry, as you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And within Lufthansa Group, which is all the airlines, not only Lufthansa, it's also Swiss and Austrian and Brussels, Eurowings, Discover, Air Dolomiti, Lufthansa City, you probably have forgotten one of them now. I try to make sure that we do report everything on sustainability in a compliant way, which means we do have regulations in the European Union, especially since 2017. I know all the acronyms and abbreviations by heart. You can wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, the CSID, the ESIS, the CSDDD, the EU taxonomy, whatever.
Well, we might have a Q&A session afterwards.
Yes. So, and yes, and I think still, we will come later to this. Of course, it is still relevant, and it gives a lot of transparency, although all these tools are not so easy to swallow. And yes, I'm happy to be here and to discuss with you.
Thank you for joining. That's wonderful. Lavinia?
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Lavinia Bauerochse. I'm working with Deutsche Bank for many years. It's actually decades now, so I stopped disclosing for how long it's long. I'm responsible for sustainable finance since 4 years now for all of our corporate clients globally. So that comprises the Mittelstand, the German Mittelstand, the smaller clients, but also the large corps globally. I'm also part of the executive committee of one of the 4 divisions of Deutsche Bank. And looking after sustainable finance really has the beauty to engage with our clients on their strategic ambitions when it comes to sustainability, understanding which measures they are looking to in place in order to get more sustainable in their business models, and how we can support them in organizing the relevant financing, because there's a lot of CapEx needed or a lot of financing needed in order to get there. And it's a very, very detailed dialogue with clients, and there's a lot of creativity and innovation taking place in that space, what we see here as well. So thank you for joining us today. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lavinia. Jessica has flown all the way here from California to join us today. Would you like to introduce yourself, Jessica?
Yes, thank you for having me. Really excited to join the conversation. I am coming from Atlassian, and for those of you that don't know Atlassian, we're a software company that make teamwork collaboration tools. So maybe you've heard of Jira, Confluence, Loom, Rovo, Trello. Essentially, we help teams get work done together easier. We've got about 300,000 customers globally, and I'm responsible for our sustainability strategy. And at Atlassian, that covers our human rights and responsible tech work, our climate work, as well as governance, reporting, and our philanthropy through the Atlassian Foundation. So really thinking about how does Atlassian set itself up to be a 100-year-old company and be around for the long run.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Silke, welcome. I love your
Welcome.
jacket, by the way, if I haven't said that earlier.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you, Amanda. My name is Silke Stremlau. I was the chair of the Sustainable Finance Advisory Committee of the German government. I think it's unique in the world. It's a multi-stakeholder forum, and our task was to advise the German government in the area of sustainable finance, how to integrate ESG in every financial decision. And we have got three big issues. First question was how to finance the transformation, because you all know we need a lot of millions of euros to make our economy sustainable, to decarbonize the economy, to invest in energy system, agriculture, new mobility. And the second issue was the regulation, as you mentioned. The regulation is a high task, and how can it be more efficient and more smart and more effective? And the third question was how to finance the transformation also in the international area, and we look for investments in the global south. So there was big task in the last 3 years, and I think there will be a lot of tasks for the next 3 years. So I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. And you're also, I think, on the advisory board, is that right? For
Yes.
NordLB?
NordLB, it's a Landesbank in Germany,
Yeah.
also from the Umweltbank in Nuremberg, and also from the family office from Jägermeister.
Oh,
because
fantastic.
they also would like to integrate ESG issues in their investments.
Oh, that's
Yes.
fantastic. I did not know that. Wonderful. Well, thank you, ladies. As you can tell, we're a very experienced panel. So I guess the first question is the title of the panel. So is ESG still relevant, given all of the current headwinds we're seeing? So, Lavinia, do you want to kick us off, perhaps?
Very happy to.
Go a little out of order.
It is, I mean, many of you will have joined Johan Rockström this morning. Fantastic presentation, as always. The urgency is there. Everybody knows that. I think we need to discuss, is ESG still the right reference? If you look into the origination, it came from an investment perspective. So investors wanted to understand how can they identify environmental, social, and governance risks when they take investment decisions. But actually the world has evolved. So we are now talking about sustainable finance. That's the current reference, because it's no longer just a decision from investors. It's also providing the relevant finance, so debt capital as well. And if we look into the future, it will be much more about transition finance. And that's one of the key elements I really put a lot of emphasis on, because I truly believe we need to think sustainability and transition more broadly than we used to in the past. Sustainability was handled almost in a silo, a discipline standalone and a little bit divided from strategic considerations of corporates, but it needs to be integrated and merged up. And we need to open up that we not solely focus and target sustainability, but also the whole business purpose of a corporate and the strategy. And there's a lot of potential in there. So ESG is super relevant, but let's evolve and move with those terms and references, and I think transition finance is the one to remember.
How we speak about it.
Exactly.
Transition that. Fantastic. Thank you. Claudia?
Yes.
Is ESG still relevant?
Of course it is. And if we talk about ESG, we really talk about the E, the S, and the G. This is something which I really want to bring forward, that it's not only environmental issues. Yeah? So this is also very close to my heart, because I think it needs to come together. In former times, we used to call it corporate responsibility. I like this wording, because it is the responsibility of the corporation. So yes, it is still very relevant, and as you said, it is the transition. I mean, I'm working in a so-called hard-to-abate industry, and it's very difficult for us to reduce our CO2 emissions. At the end of the day, we are only the service provider, I usually say. We do not produce the aircraft, so we do not produce the input factors. So it's the aircraft and it's the fuel, the fossil fuel right now. So we are a little bit dependent also on our suppliers, and it is extremely expensive to create sustainable aviation fuels. I mean, the technology is there. There are a lot of startups. I think 2 weeks ago I was in a conference and DG Move told us that there are about 500 startups in Europe. But of course we are still waiting for the volumes to come. So, and it is a very financial question. So, and what Lavinia just said, I really can echo this, because I know in 2015, I think Larry Fink at the time, they were pushing very much because they wanted to see whether there are any climate risks, in the company. And this, if you look now also in this very complicated regulations, at the end of the day, it's all about risk.
Right.
And I think this really needs to be portrayed in the reporting. And yes, yes.
Yeah, you still think it's relevant?
Relevant.
For sure. Silke, you're talking regularly to businesses around Germany. What are they saying about this topic?
I think I'm boring from this question, really, because I think in the last weeks, every week I have to talk about this question, every week, and I'm a little bit boring because when I look outside, I think yes, it's still relevant. You can name it ESG, sustainability, transition. You name it, but we have got the driest quarter, the driest spring ever, and we will have floods, and the extreme weather incidents will be there, and we are inside the climate change crisis.
Exactly.
Yes, it's not coming in 2050. It's here. So for me, I think, okay, please open your eyes, and you have to change your targets, you have to change your economy, you have to change your business models. They must be sustainable. So the question is relevant, and we have to look how we can change it, how we can make it better. It's not regulation. Lavinia told us it's strategy, and you have to change your business model. But we also have to change the intensivation for flights, for business models, but also for the remuneration of the board. And also the internalization of external costs.
Right.
The CO2 price is one thing, but I think we have to evolve this internal model also for other business models. So,
I think they see it as innovation. The companies you're speaking to, do they see it now as part of their innovation strategy?
Yeah, I think so, because I think these companies will be successful, these companies which do not have a separation between innovation and sustainability, innovation and competitiveness.
Yeah.
If they bring it together as two sides of one coin, then these companies will be successful.
Yeah.
And then I think there is also a big advantage for export and for success, for economic success, because there are solutions in kind of automation, battery, renewable energy, pharmaceutic, automation. There are big chances for successful companies, and this brings solutions also for our climate questions.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually. As you're talking, I'm thinking, when you come at it from a finance perspective, you always think about risk. But when you come at it from an innovation perspective, you think about opportunity.
Yes.
And I think it's the fact that those two kind of sides of the argument, either one prevails or the other, and it's really bringing the two together that will change the dialogue, I think. Jessica, how about yourself at Atlassian? What are you talking about there? Is ESG still relevant to your CEO and your board, to your customers?
I think I can, echo a lot of what the panel said and then talk through kind of how we're landing that. So, to your point, the issues that we're talking about, climate change, responsible tech, those issues are not going away. And so the question is, how do companies build for resilience and adaptation and take these material issues and think about them in the context of their business strategy? And at Atlassian, one of the things that we've done is said, okay, sustainability cannot sit on an island on itself. It actually has to be integrated into the business, and we need to put customer value front and center. Right. So what is it in this space that our customers are asking us for, and how do we understand that? And what we've seen actually in the last year is that the inbound customer requests coming into my team have doubled. Our customers, particularly from Europe, where over 40% of our revenue is coming from, they have to meet these regulatory requirements, and they've got their own goals, and so they want to understand how are we along for the ride with them, and how do we deliver not just software, but actually practices and strategy to go along with that. So when we set our net zero goal, we have to be laser focused on making progress against that goal. But we also shared our Don't Fuck the Planet guide, and that's a resource that we can give to our customers now to say, look, very humbly, here's how we've gone after our net zero goal so that you may get there faster. So it's really making that transition from setting the goal and thinking about how you change your own operations to actually, okay, now how do we deliver customer value and value to our investors and to our employees?
Yeah. Does that resonate with you, Claudia? Because you two have very similar kind of roles. So
Yes, it does. I really would like to pick a little bit on what Silke just said about changing the business model.
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult for an airline to change completely the business model unless we all stop flying and we are no longer a backbone of the economy. But what I would like to highlight, instead of waiting for too long for technology to accelerate, to be there in sufficient amounts, I think it is very important also to look on the small things. Yeah, and these are things like what we can do right now, and to make also our strategy work. I do not like to say, do you have a sustainability strategy? No, it's incorporated into our strategy. And one part what an airline operator can do themselves is to look into fuel efficiency. Maybe it's a little bit boring because we do this forever, because every drop of fuel we save also money, we save CO2. But we have like 95 running projects right now, yeah. And I would like to really also draw the attention. Even yesterday evening when we saw the nominees, yeah. I mean, with all the little projects, yeah. It is so fascinating. And coming back to the question, does it still matter? Yes, it does. But sometimes it's not the really big invention. And so my point is really every little drop at the end of the day helps. But yes, of course, we also need to support the big technology. We need big technology. So this is my point, because there are maybe some industries, for them it's a little bit easier to change the business model.
Yeah. But may I ask a radical question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Because I think for Lufthansa, you said it's very hard, but I heard one of your colleagues, and she said, we never will be sustainable as an airline. So we have to also just ask a question, can we fly less? Should we fly less? I know that is a radical question. I did not fly for 10 years, so I think we have to discuss that.
Because we know we need transport for trade, and so the question then is, okay, what are the other alternatives? Are there potential future partnerships? I'm sure Lufthansa is thinking about that. How you partner into other areas of transportation if it's going to be so tricky to abate. But what do you think, Claudia?
Yeah.
Then I'll come to Lavinia, because I know she wants to jump in.
At the end of the day, it's the customer who decides. As you just said, you haven't flown for like 10 years, and this is also what then the airlines will see. I mean, it is a decision of the customer. And of course, with all the regulation, I think it's also quite clear that also ticket prices will go up. So there is a self-regulated mechanism, as what you said also in the beginning, CO2 prices, etc., etc. But one last word to that one, it's we really have to look into what aviation brings good to the economy in such, also on the financial side. And you cannot just build it up like buses, I mean, because it needs a whole system behind. And I'm still convinced that for the whole economy, it is still relevant, yes. But yes, we also look into like intermodal traffic, so we reduce short-haul flights or whatsoever. So this is what I also mean with the little steps, So if we can't get the big tech right now, although we have, I think, 240 aircraft on order, I mean, with modern technology, which reduces already by 25%, we have to do also the little steps,
Lavinia, you wanted to jump in?
I would love to comment on two different aspects already raised. So I think we need more time.
We'll still be here,
The two sides of a coin, and I would love to echo that, because I think we need to make transparent that every entrepreneur wants to understand which risks are impacting their business model. And ESG risks are very tangible. In times, physical risks, they need to understand and get prepared for. But it's the same understanding which is being built up, which also helps to adapt the business model to make it more future-proof. So innovation, being a catalyst for innovation, but also understand the risks associated, is inherent in every entrepreneur in order to hand over or make his business ready and resilient. The same applies to the financial service sector. We are lending a balance sheet of an FI, we are a regulated industry. We need to understand risks which are inherent in the exposure we are providing via our corporate loan book. So it's part of the same conversation, but which is very forward-looking and innovative at the same time. The second point I wanted to make was really about the consumption point of view. And there, I fully get what we can today influence should be influenced. But if I think about the future demand of energy, and many of the energy scenarios, even EAI, the International Energy Agency, don't quite incorporate yet what data center consumption is going to imply.
I mean, AI.
What the big AI models, I know they can be structured that they are less energy consuming, they can help and facilitate energy transition. But if we think about it, if I hear that Microsoft for the new large data centers requires, for the new ones they are planning, those have an energy consumption per day which is comparable to the one to New York City.
Yeah.
One data center.
I know, it's
and
incredible.
nobody wants us to step back from those innovations. Nobody wants to not be attractive as an economy, as a region. We all want to attract new businesses. We want to increase computing power. So that means we really need to get our head around how do we make our infrastructure investments in more stable infrastructure? How can we really accelerate renewables? And that's the positive momentum I see. I don't see it as a negative. I see that as a competitive advantage. We need to build out.
Yeah.
And I think we also need that positive
I totally
narrative.
agree. I totally agree. And actually, I really like what Johan said this morning, Johan Rockström, for those of you who saw it, about the diffusion of innovation. And he was basically pointing out that at this 20% moment, we get to a tipping point where innovation will take off. And in this case, he's talking about innovation in sustainable and renewable energy sources. And my goodness, we're going to need it. I think with AI, I felt like we were just kind of getting there, weren't we? And now AI's come along, this enormous energy requiring monster. So we've got to double down here and really attack these problems for sure. I'm just going to segue just real quick. I just want to ask Jessica a question, just jumping around a little bit, because obviously the reason that the title of this panel is the title that it is that there's some fun and interesting things going on in international politics right now. And that is setting up some headwinds, I think, around sustainability and the ESG agenda. And as you're working and living in the US, how are you tackling that as a chief sustainability officer for a major corporation? And what are the conversations going on between yourself and your peers, and also with your CEO and your board? What kind of questions are they coming to you with now?
I think for all of us in this space, if you've been around for a while, we know that it's long-term in nature. All of us are looking at least over the next decade. So that's longer than sort of a political moment or even where we are at with new regulation. So if you have that really long-term view versus the quarter over quarter, you're sort of saying, okay, what are the issues that are most material to our business? That is beyond, one quarter. And how do we make progress there? And so at Atlassian, we have our net zero goal that's 2040, long way out. And that is the North Star that remains. And then I think along the way, you think through, okay, near term, what are the emissions reduction milestones I need to get to for FY25 for us? That's scope 1 and 2, 50% reduction, which we were able to get to in the first year. Now we're looking at virtual power purchase agreements. And then you go scope 3, okay, I've got the same business travel problem that you do, and I have my data center supply chain problem. Those challenges we have to tackle regardless, and that's a long game. In parallel, you have to look at the emerging regulatory landscape, and it, frankly, right now is a little bit different as we look globally. We have huge regulation coming out of Europe, which I'm trying to, keep pace with you all on. California has
You've got two people to help you
That's
here,
right. That's right. California has its own set of standards, so there's something different happening at the U.S. federal level versus the U.S. state level. We expect that to continue. And Australia, we're an Australian company. They've got their own set of regulations. So it's sort of, how do I manage the long-term strategy that is tied to my business and important to my customers and important to my investors, and then also make sure I'm compliant, in all the jurisdictions that I'm operating in? And how do I see that not as a check the box, but more as an opportunity to understand kind of what's going to be important long-term and use those regulations as sort of a signal for myself.
Fantastic. Silke, I was very pleased to hear you were sharing with me that there's still a significant pipeline of transformation initiatives coming out of the US. So segueing from that, coming to your organizations,
Yeah, I'm in the supervisory board of the Norddeutsche Landesbank, and they are the bank of the energy transition, Bank der Energiewende. Nobody knows this normally in Germany because it's not a typical environmental bank. And they make a lot of renewable energy projects in the US. And the CEO told us last week, as we have got a meeting, that the pipeline is still full now for the next 1.5 years. There's no stop of any projects because of the energy hunger in the US of AI and blockchain, etc., etc. So they still finance renewable energy projects and fossil fuel industry products. So in the moment, it's good because these projects are for batteries and saving technology and also solar, not wind, but solar and batteries.
You were saying it's because Trump doesn't like wind.
Yes, because he plays golf in Scotland and there are 2 windmills.
Too many windmills in Scotland when he
I
plays
don't know
golf.
if it's true, but that's a nice story. Yeah,
But it is really
story.
interesting, actually, and I found that very encouraging. You know, I mean, I know that probably it's coming from just the requirement for energy. You know, the demand for energy is so huge. Yeah. But at least we're not stopping any of the projects that are at play in the US, which I think is really
That's right. And I mean, Atlassian is still investing. So in the last 2 years, we've done a virtual power purchase agreement in the US. It covers all of our US office load, and we expanded that to cover work from home voluntarily just because we now have a distributed team.
That's great.
And so that felt like the right, honest move as we talk about being 100% renewable. And our virtual power purchase agreement actually is repowering a wind farm in Texas. So the demand is there. You know, companies like Atlassian are growing. We're using more energy, and we need that to be renewable.
That's fantastic.
I would comment.
Lavinia, I was just coming to you.
Again.
Go ahead. Jump in.
I definitely observe the same thing. Like, we shouldn't be surprised that in the US there and around the world, economically viable projects will come together. There's no stopping if the case makes sense, and we need to also focus and support those projects. If there is any sense that this provides them with a competitive advantage, there's a lot of activity, and they sense that they have the energy hunger. The same applies for Asia. Asia has taken significant advances in coming out with taxonomies, providing guidance for transition, for example, Japan, Singapore, others. And if I talk to clients and colleagues in China, they are very outspoken to say sustainability has become one of our capabilities. Nice. We sense this capability provides us with a competitive edge with goods they are providing. They are adding a lot of renewables and invest more than any other state per year. They still use a lot of coal and build out coal, so that's to criticize, but they are really, really scaling up their renewable energy sources. And I think in Europe, while we were front runner and very, very providing guidance with all the regulations we have, there's now the Omnibus initiative. We are scaling, we are right-sizing a little bit, which is good, but also we should overcome this focus about reporting and just focusing on regulation. We need to think about the projects, the actual measures which have impact, rather than just focusing on right data, in my view, personally.
Great point, Lavinia. Thank you very much for that. Sadly, we've only got 2 minutes left, and I know you all wanted to stay another 30 minutes, but I'm going to have to wrap us up slightly. So let me combine a couple of questions and give you ladies the floor. So I'd love to get any sort of last points you want to make in terms of the regulation or the financing, or how you're dealing with challenges at the board level. And I'd also like to hear, what are your views about how we can reposition or communicate ESG more effectively so that people are not impacted by these headwinds? And Jessica said previously, let's not all be so reactive. I think that's absolutely right. But is there a new way we can position ESG to continue to keep the momentum behind it and make sure it doesn't fall off? Would you like to go first, Claudia? We'll go in order.
So many questions.
So you can prepare yourself. So thoughts we haven't covered, and then your thoughts on that you wanted to bring up, and then also your thoughts on how we communicate ESG more effectively.
I think I would come back to the very beginning, that at the end of the day, it is really an attitude. So, and if you personally, and I think we always look at the corporations or institutions or whatsoever, at the end of the day, it's each of us, And I think if someone decides not to fly anymore or need to fly long-haul flights or whatsoever, it is a personal decision. And if I may take this as an example, so what we can try to do is, and I need to be very careful now because there is also this greenwashing and wording and what words we can use, and even sustainable aviation fuel is so longer a difficult thing. So, but what we can provide is to try to make a product more sustainable, put it this way, or to fly in a more sustainable way, and to give our customers then also the opportunity to have tickets in which you have SAF integrated or whatsoever. And I think this is the communication. And as you said, it's hard for us to be completely sustainable, put it this way, but we have to go in that direction, and every little step helps.
Fantastic. And anything on the communication? How you would communicate ESG more differently? Or how are you communicating it, I guess, to your own CEO and board if they're taking their foot slightly off the pedal, I don't know.
And there, I think reality kicks in somehow. And I think for us, it is the big solutions, it's the big techs, and it's quite slow at the moment if it comes to sustainable aviation fuel, which is very important and the important thing. And therefore, we communicate back to the fuel efficiency, to the project, which we can do today, and we can save fuel every day. And BASF was on a panel.
Yeah.
So we have this one very quite famous project where we have developed together with BASF the AeroShark, so to reduce the drag, and so this saves like 1% of fuel energy. So, and this is what we portray more into our communication, and this is what we can do as the airline operator.
A lot about innovation, really, in your area, I think. Lavinia, last couple of thoughts?
One thought, everybody who's here understands the urgency, and I consider us inside a bubble. But if we want to mobilize people outside this bubble, we need to think of how to carry them along. And that requires different ways of narrative, different ways of communication, but also focusing on the opportunity set. I strongly believe that we need to bring sustainability into the overall growth and competitive advantage considerations. That will empower us even more to get the sustainability goals in place, not only in place, but achieve them. But we will need a positive momentum. That's at least my takeaway from the last 4 years. I think we have understood, but how do we reach those who are outside this room?
Yeah, I think that is the number one challenge, absolutely. Jessica?
I think the biggest pivot for Atlassian and myself in this role has really been as I've moved under the legal and finance organization. It's required me to really develop a new language and a new way of communicating what we do and what the value is as a sustainability function. And it's forced me to really put our customers front and center. And I think just being able to understand the business strategy and the business goals, and then how our sustainability goals support those, rather than I have a net zero goal and I need everybody to help me, but our business goals, and then how is this supporting? So if I think about that through a marketing lens, through a sales lens, through a finance lens, through a legal lens, how am I supporting that team? And that's really allowed me to kind of reposition the work that we're doing, again, centering customers and business value.
That's a great point, yeah. 60% of all RFPs that we receive require sustainability requirements. So, yeah, I completely agree. If you come at it through the lens of the customer, and the business and what you need to achieve. Yeah. Silke, final word to you.
Yeah, I would say please go on, not be frustrated. It's a long, long way, as you know it from other transformations. For example, the abolition of the slavery, it counts hundreds of years. So I think for transformation and transition, we need also a lot of years. And it's a kind of a wave, and now we are here, but it will go on. And there are a lot of solutions here. The brain is here, the intelligence is here. Let's do it in every kind of your space, and then we will get it, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you for that positive message, Silke. I appreciate that. And for those of you who are interested in AI and data centers, Jessica has got a panel on the deep dive stage, I think, coming up. So please join her for that. But I'd love you to join me in thanking this wonderful panel. Thank you very much.